But we're going to talk electricity now. Ben Clatworthy is here, transport correspondent from The Times. He went on an intrepid journey, which I read about at the weekend, and I said to my producer, Christian, I said, we must get Ben on, because he's taken an electric car all the way from Land's End to John O'Groats, which is remarkable. Because apart from anything else, I'm amazed he even made it at all. Let's find out how it went. Ben, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
So, I mean, I haven't actually been to John O'Groats. I've been to Land's End, but I've never quite got to the dizzy heights of that far north in Britain. It was quite a journey, wasn't it? Tell us about it.
It was indeed. So we hired a Skoda ENYAQ, one of the most popular electric cars in Britain, to set off on what was an 867-mile, 16 hours and 36-hour jaunt up through the country in this electric car. Now, what we found was that it's just such a different way of driving compared to a petrol car, where really, there are very few things that can go wrong, bar a puncture or running out of fuel. And what you have to do is just plan ahead so much more than you would. In the end, we did 5 different charging stops on the way up, including one very early on in Taunton. But yeah, it was just that sort of constant looking at the range, looking at the percentage of the battery that were left in far more than a way that you might otherwise.
Yeah. It sounded a bit nerve-wracking to me. When I read the piece, I was sort of feeling for you as you were kind of nearing what was going to be your next charging point. You didn't really know, as you never do, whether it's going to be working, whether there's going to be somebody else using it, whether there's going to be 3 people in front of you. You know, it's a much more kind of, shall we say, I don't know, sort of unknown, isn't it? Rather than just pulling into a petrol station and filling up your car.
It is, and we came off the main route in 2 places, Ambleside in the Lake District, Aviemore in the Scottish Highlands. In Ambleside, we thought we'd booked a hotel. I had my friend Charlie with me to help with the driving. We thought we booked a hotel with electric car charging. When I asked the receptionist, he basically laughed and said that you would probably have to go back to Windermere.
Right.
In fact, I then looked at one of the apps. It said that there was a charging point around the corner in a public car park. Got there, it wasn't working. Eventually found one in a hotel. It was a slow charger. You had to scan a QR code, download an app. Didn't know how much it was going to cost, didn't know how long it was going to take. Also didn't really know if non-hotel guests were allowed to charge their car there. And what was interesting as well was, this is part of the reason we did this, is it's such a divisive topic on one hand, and in my job I hear from both sides all the time. You have the sort of EV evangelists in one hand and the petrol heads and those people with diesel cars who say they never want to switch in the other hand. And actually, when we published the article, very quickly the debate ignited. But I was tickled by an electric car owner who listed about 6 things that I'd done wrong. He said he couldn't believe that I didn't plan the journey. He couldn't believe I didn't download the Tesla app, even though I wasn't driving a Tesla. He said I couldn't believe that I didn't have an app that allowed all payment on one single app. And the list went on. And I thought, but this is exactly what we're trying to illustrate here, is that it's if I get in my VW Golf that's parked downstairs, as long as I don't run out of fuel, I'll be up in John O'Groats, tomorrow, day after, no problem at all.
Exactly
EV,
right.
Very different.
And that's the thing. I mean, people say to me, again, and as you know, we have these conversations all the time, whether they're on social media or on the show, that, you have to get about 15 different apps if you want to fill out all of the different various charging points up and down the country, because they're all different systems. They're not all one app. And if it was all one app, it might be a lot easier.
Well, it's got a lot. Yes, that's very true. It has got better in terms of that lots of the charging stations now accept contactless card payment. Right. But one thing I found, and listening to this, there'll be a lot of people that rely on their cars and vans to do their jobs and actually need receipts, be it for the tax man or for their employer. I'm still trying to get 2 receipts off charge points, one for the M5 services in Gloucester. I've had to send an email. They eventually found who owned the charge point, sent an email. They said they might be able to get me a receipt now. The other one is for a BP Pulse charger up in Aviemore on my way home. I filled out the form. I haven't had anything back. So there's these other little things that are so different to when you walk into the filling station or you're using the machine outside. Do you want a receipt? Yes, and prints it out. or you're in the cashier and he says, "Do you want a receipt?" "Yes, please." Out you walk. So it's, even though in some ways it is getting easier, there are still challenges. And I think what so often people who drive EVs fall back on is saying, well, I do all my charging at home,
right,
or there it's only 7p a night, 7p a kilowatt hour overnight, which is all fine. But I think there are a lot of people, and people that I spoke to for other stories, that see this completely as a hobby horse of the middle classes that have driveways, that have space, and who do potentially only use their electric car for going to the supermarket or the school run.
And that's the point, isn't it? Because if they actually said, you know, the thing about electric cars is that, you know, they're brilliant if you just want to use it locally, but don't even think about taking it on a long journey. And that would be sensible. And then people might actually, because I'm all about, you know, listening to people who tell me the truth as opposed to, you know, people who just want to fill me full of propaganda. You know, it's very obvious to me, because I remember Sky News did something similar and took a car from London to Glasgow, in which it took about 15 hours, because every time they pulled up to they stayed on the motorways. Every time they pulled up to a service stop, you know, there was about 1 or 2 people in front of them trying to use the same charger, and so they had to wait for ages. And so, you know, if you say all those things and go, well, actually, you know, if you were just spending your time going to the shop, taking the kids to school, doing whatever around your neighbourhood, it's probably fine to have an electric car. But if you're going to be travelling long distances, that's not really what it's meant for.
Exactly. And I interviewed a couple at a charger just outside Pitlochry in Scotland. It was a pure coincidence.
It's where I scattered my father's ashes, by the way.
Oh, a beautiful part of the world. And I should add as well that doing this journey, apart from the sort of the main motorway bit where it's a motorway, the scenery last week was spectacular, awesome colours, really nice. But I stopped and chatted to this couple. And we'd decided that we needed an extra pit stop between Ambleside and Aviemore. We decided we were going to meet some people for lunch. The place we were going to, we didn't plan ahead, didn't have a charger. So we found on the apps this slow charger just to get a little bit more juice in to get to Aviemore. And someone got in touch with me and said, "It's very sad that you picked to do your interview at a slow charger." I said, "I didn't pick to do the interview. I just looked for somewhere to charge the car. There was a couple there. I had a conversation with them, and what they said was very interesting. They said, would they have got an electric car before they retired? To which the wife said, no, probably not, because we now plan so much more. It's nice if we can stop where we were there, had a cafe. And it's interesting that immediately people are out to accuse you of sort of trying to go away and find an angle. Was actually, I was just standing there with my mate, and this couple were there charging their car, and we got chatting, and I said, would they share their experiences for the story, and they were more than happy to do so. And instantly people think that it was some sort of game that I set out to find some people at a slow charger. I didn't even know it was a slow charger.
You can't get away from the climate nutters, Ben, no matter where you go. I mean, you know, half of them are out in Baku now. I mean, the funniest story of the day for me today is that in amongst the various things that they're doing at the Climate Conference, COP29, is that they're going to all be sitting down chatting with the Taliban about what they should do about saving the planet. It's quite ridiculous, isn't it?
Well, I always remember when it was in Glasgow being sent some fascinating details of the number of private jets that were landing at the airports there, the sudden huge spike as people flew in to discuss the climate agenda.
Yeah, absolutely right. Great.